Hello and welcome to my video on CPU performance. What is better, Intel or AMD? What's better for your CPU, memory speed or clock speed or memory size? Well, this will all be answered today. Also, we are going to be exploring how to increase your CPU performance. This is not going to be based on graphics cards, even though that this can be a viable reason to why your CPU is not performing as well as you may think. This is called a bottleneck, but this is not going to be the focus of this video, as we have to keep it just about CPUs. So on the left we have the Ryzen 9 3950X, and as you can see at the bottom left, it is PCIe Gen 4 ready. And you're probably thinking, what does that mean? Okay, so that means that the storage, the M.2 NVMe SSD, can use this new technology called Gen 4. This is only available at the moment on the X570 platform on motherboard, but will soon be available to the B550, which is coming out very soon. The only difference being that can't do the PCIe Gen 4 at the bottom lane, which goes through the chipset, which most people wouldn't use anyway, seeing as it goes through the chipset, which makes it slower anyway. So you can just use a Gen 3 for that. And on the right we have the i9 1900K. This is not very packed with features, unlike the Ryzen 9 3950X. It's more packed just towards gaming. If you want pure gaming performance, then go for this. And the light video editing here and there, thanks to the 8 cores and 16 threads of SMT, it can be nice. But here's the thing, the 8 core 16 thread on the 14nm plus platform, yes I know it's very big mouthful. I don't really know why they don't just go to 7nm. I haven't done enough research into that. I will do, so I can explain it better next time. But yeah, so the combination of 8 cores, 16 threads, and on that platform means that it is only really able to do gaming. So with the light video editing here and there, yeah. It is an extremely capable gaming processor nonetheless. So is the one on the left, but the left one, so is the 3950X, but it can also do way more. Being 16 cores and 32 threads on a desktop platform using the X570 motherboard, it is just, well, any X570 motherboard, it is just insane to say that out loud. So the predecessor to this one was the 3900X, which was 12 cores and 24 threads, which is still beating Intel's top desktop processor. So as you can probably tell, I am a little bit more lenient, like most tech channels at the moment, towards AMD. But with the new Z490 chipset, Z490 motherboards coming out, and the Intel Comet Lake S 10th gen, I think I might change my mind, seeing as the base platform, like the low end, the i3-9100F is very comparable, looks very comparable towards the 3300X and 3100X, which just came out from AMD. Okay, so what do you want? If you go with AMD, you're going to get great multitasking performance and compute performance. This can mean like rendering for 4D exercises like Cinebench, or and a little bit of gaming. So the actual difference in gaming performance is about 3 FPS on average. In some games leaning more towards Intel, and some games leaning more towards AMD, because AMD has more cores and more threads. So like Apex Legends, you're not going to see, like Apex Legends, you might see a bit of a difference, seeing as it's a very thread intensive. Okay, you'll get more value with AMD. More value means more bang for the buck you are going to get. So let's say you need a 4-core 8 thread processor, then the 3300X is just, there's not much competition at the moment, like I said before, until the i3-9100F, 10100F comes out. Yeah, sorry for saying 9100F earlier, I meant 10100F. Anyway, you're gonna get more power, this is a bit of a weird one. So power can mean lots of different things. Power can mean power consumption, which Intel actually uses more, seeing as it's on a less efficient. So yeah, Intel is less efficient because of the fabrication process, as I said earlier. The 14nm plus fabrication process is not very efficient. It is quite a large die to put your CCX modules into, but it is showing what Intel can do with such a limited thing. So so what will you get if you go with Intel? You get better OEM support, which is so like people like Dell, HP and laptops will generally go more towards Intel, and better overclocking. This is so because you have less usually you have less cores and less threads, you can usually overclock it a bit higher. So yeah, you will be getting a better chipset, better cooler out of the box with AMD. So the cooler with AMD is, so there's the Wraith, Stealth and Prism coolers, and those are cool and actually much better than Intel's. I think the top processor which comes with a cooler from Intel might be the 9600K, but you're still going to want to go much better than that. Yeah, so the only ones which don't come with a cooler are the Threadripper 3rd Gen and the 3950X from AMD. Okay, how to improve your CPU performance. This is what you guys all came here for. Okay, overclocking. It is great for increasing the gigahertz or speed, or actually megahertz is more comparable, because yeah, increasing a whole gigahertz can be quite difficult without a decent cooler, and might hurt the lifespan of your CPU, seeming as you have to increase the voltage. Talking about voltage, it is also great for decreasing the voltage if your cooler can't handle it, and it's also great for increasing it if you want to increase the speed. But don't increase like anything less than 8 cores to something like 4 volts. Say 1.4 volts. Do not go to 4 volts. I don't even think a motherboard can do that. Yeah, so it can be quite costly to replace the motherboard if the VRMs explode from overvolting it. Yeah, it's also great for sorting out thermals with undervolting. So let's say your cooler out of the box is starting to see its lifespan come to an end, then but you don't have the money to get a new cooler, then you can sacrifice a little bit of performance for much better thermals by just getting by just undervolting it, or you could just get better thermal paste. I would preferably do that because I don't really want to sacrifice any performance. But yeah, so overclocking can be great for performance, but so let's say like a previous gen AMD processor could probably overclock to about I have seen it under liquid nitrogen be able to overclock to about 8.2 gigahertz. I will put the video. I'll probably put the video in the description of where I saw that. But it still won't increase the performance to something comparable to new gen AMD, even with the high clock speeds. Better thermals. So with something like AMD's Precision Boost, which I have noted on before, is actually such a cool out of the box application. It doesn't really need any extra software to run, and it's just great. So basically, what it does is it takes into consideration your thermals, motherboard, your actual CPU, and your task which is at hand, and if you need to have a quick boost. And yeah, so with CPUs you have your base clock and your boost clock. This is so the base clock is when you're just idle and you're not really doing anything that intensive. Then your CPU will just stay at that boost clock. At that base clock, it won't need to boost any higher. It might go a little bit higher just to get a little bit more performance because it can, but it doesn't need to. But then let's say you're going to do like a Cinebench thing, or you're doing some rendering, then it will, or I don't know, a CPU intensive game, then it will boost higher. This boost can be anywhere from, you know, like 30% increase to 40%, and you can change this with overclocking. But with AMD's precision boost, it takes into consideration of thermals, motherboard, CPU, task at hand, and will and will boost higher than the out of the box boost clock, which is really cool. It's great for performance, and it's really clever. Yeah. So, and also better thermals will always help your CPU deal with harder tasks and so much more. Practically impossible to overclock without a better cooler. With AMD, like I've said before, AMD's coolers out of the box are much better. So maybe the Prism cooler on something like a 3600X will probably be able to overclock a little bit. Maybe even the Wraith Stealth a little bit higher, but I wouldn't recommend this. It will saturate your thermal paste much faster, and it's just not a good idea. I would personally go to water cooling, as it's not as clunky, it's not as loud, and can look really cool. And it can also be better. Obviously, custom water cooling is the best, seeing as you have more, because water has a higher thermal saturation point. So yeah. It can be costly. I'm not going to say it's difficult to install. It's not that difficult. With the AM4 bracket, it's not too difficult. You just need a back plate. You just need the back plate, screw it in, and that's pretty much it. With certain brands, it's much easier. With some brands, it's much harder. Like with the cheaper ones from Alibaba, it can be quite difficult to install. Whether Corsair's coolers and Noctua's coolers are really easy. Linus Tech Tips have teamed up with Noctua because he really likes how easy it is to install, and the performance that you get for the money is awesome with Noctua. But they only make air coolers, and they used to have this really horrible brown and white color, so now they have the Chromax black versions. Anyway, yeah, so these can be really cool to have. It's really good to have better thermals, just so you can have that leeway in certain games. Increasing RAM size, speeds, and latency. You're probably thinking, why would this matter to my CPU? So the way RAM works is it communicates with your CPU to output to give your CPU quick access, randomly accessible memory. So let's say you're loading up a game like Call of Duty, and you need to load the map. You need to load certain parts of the map and unload other parts of the map. This will be less intensive on your CPU. This is why they do it. This is actually more common with something like Minecraft, as you can actually see it happen with certain apps. You can actually see the chunks which it is loading and the chunks which it's not at the time. It's quite cool. Anyway, the RAMs. So this is why RAM is very useful. You're probably thinking, why do I need so much of it? Well, with certain games with larger maps, with more details and higher, like more guns and stuff, or anything really, you're always going to need more RAM. So why would I need more speed? Well, the speed is the speed which it can communicate with the CPU. So let's say you're running AMD Ryzen 5 3600 with RAM at 3000 megahertz. Or let's say you're doing it at 2666 megahertz, then you're not going to see as much FPS because you can't load each frame as well because of these slower RAM. But let's say you do it with 3600 megahertz or 3200 megahertz, you'll see an increase, and this is mostly common with AMD and less so common with Intel. Intel doesn't really rely on RAM speeds as much, which it can be seen as a plus, but I see it as a negative, as the actual increase in performance is quite significant. So I think 3200 megahertz is the sweet spot. Some people think it's 3600 megahertz. But what I also think is with 3200 megahertz, you can decrease the latency of the RAM, which can quite surprisingly improve your performance. You're probably thinking, what's latency? Well, latency is this can be something like CAS latency, which is the latency between when your CPU can start asking for memory, and yeah. So the reason why this matters is because lower latency means less time between your CPU communicating with your RAM. RAM prices can fluctuate. In 2016, you probably remember RAM prices being extremely high. Some DDR5, say GDDR5, and obviously not DDR5, we're not there yet, but GDDR5 RAM is quite expensive at the moment. That's why everyone's switching towards GDDR6 with the reboot of the 1650 from NVIDIA. That's graphics card stuff. Anyway, yeah, so it can so RAM prices are fluctuating at the moment between $5 per gigabyte to around $30 per gigabyte. This can mean so with the $5 per gigabyte, it could be like a not so good RAM stick, so maybe really high cache latency, like 18, 19, and not that high speeds like 26, 66. It's just yeah, it's not going to be that nice. Whether with $30 per gigabyte, it might be something like the Trident Z Neo RAM, which is like cache latency 14 and like 3600 megahertz. It's really good. Timings are difficult to obtain, like by overclocking, but the best way to increase your RAM actual performance is to activate the XMP profile or GDL or JEDEC in your BIOS. This is really simple to do. When you're booting up your computer, you mash the delete key or the F2 key, I think it is, and yeah, and it will go into your BIOS and then go over to memory, and in memory you can usually activate the XMP profile. Yeah, basically this unlocks your RAM and lets it boost to higher frequencies. So yeah, that is it for today. I just wanted to explain how to increase your CPU performance and what is best for what. So like I said, AMD prefers higher RAM. If you want pure gaming performance, then go with Intel, and if you want compute tasks, then go with AMD. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that this was informal and you learned something. I will be improving my video qualities and stuff, and doing more videos like this rather than the lyrics videos which I did. But yeah, I hope to see you soon. Bye!